Hi everybody, welcome to my favorite topic, family. Talking about family and diversity, which is my other favorite topic. So even if you don't like family research, diversity and family really go hand to hand in several different ways. Many of these are described in the chapter and discussed by Jordan Solis in the chapter that you read for today, and then I'm going to expand upon some of these, and I'm going to end by talking about a bit of research on what's called the spillover effect between work life and family life. And an overarching idea here is that who we are at work and who we are at home, but it doesn't have to be at home. That's just where a lot of family interactions take place. Who we are at work and who we are at home tends to be similar in many ways. Surprise, surprise, the kind of person we are at home is the kind of person that we are at work and out and about, and we'll adjust a little bit for the realm, but we are who we are. And we like being consistent in these realms. But a lot of times we have things that happen in one place or another, and they will spill over into those other realms in ways that can be problematic, also in ways that are helpful. So let's dig in. Let's start taking some notes. So feel free to take notes along with me in the Word document that I have. You can add your notes in there. So main points and reminders from this chapter on family. First, in this chapter, we're reading how the same phenomena that we have been talking about outside of the family, talking about work in a general sense, categorization, in, out grouping, differential treatment to based on categorical differences. All of these can happen within the family. This is pretty neat, especially considering that family is like an ultimate in-group, and that we feel a sense of solidarity and similarity among ourselves and our family members, especially when we're thinking about our family compared to non-family members, and that's heightened even more. So let's review some fundamental points that this new family context reminds us of in the broader literature. So number one, social identity theory of intergroup behavior asserts that we are drawn to in-groups and away from our perceived out-groups, but not that these are purely dichotomous. So what I mean by that is, while I'll even be guilty of saying, are you in my in-group or are you in my out-group? It isn't always like hopping between, hopscotch. They're not dichotomous. So there is actually a continuum. Certainly the more intergroup, the less interpersonal. Remember all that from the beginning days together. But there are degrees to which one is an in-group member. And the more you're an in-group member, the more interpersonal. Okay, so you remember that. So the family context is a great reminder that you aren't just in or out. There are degrees of that. And these can change at any time. At any time. You're always my family, but you could feel like more of a family member or not. And so Lise makes this point nicely at the top of page 182. Now, point number two, group salience. This is defined on page 182. So Lise quotes Harwood and colleagues for this. Important side note, whenever you're writing about quote versus quotation, anytime you have anytime you're saying I made a quotation or this is a quotation, if it's a noun, it's a quotation. Quote is only a verb. So when people say, I put a bunch of quotes up on my blog page, no you didn't. You put a bunch of quotations up there. You quoted people, you quoted others' thoughts or ideas, you quoted them, but the thing in of itself is a quotation. Okay, it's just a pet peeve that's always done wrong, and I just want to put it out. Okay, so this quotation that he provides from Harwood and colleagues reminds us that salience is about your awareness of group differences. How much are you mindful of it? How much is it having an impact on that interaction? So just like at work, if you're relying heavily on the different groups of you and the person with whom you're interacting in that family, then it's going to be consequential in good or bad ways. So if within your family you're really cognizant of, for instance, I'm young, you're old, that's high group salience. That's different from when you're engaged in that interaction as two family members, or just two people. So how salient group members group memberships are is really important to understand the interaction and the ramifications of that interaction in the family, just like outside of the family. Okay, point number 3. Having a common identity brings the benefits of in-group status to out-group members. So, Jordan Solis is the author of your chapter, is my academic advisor and dear friend. So, Jordan mentions step families. My favorite example is in-laws, with both step families and in-law relationships. We can really see this. So, here are these two distinct groups. Two little... Sorry about that. My family life just spilled over for a call about one of my kids. So here we go. So having a common identity brings the benefits of in-group status to out-group members. So Jordan mentioned step families. I love talking about in-laws. That's my favorite area to cover. So here we have these two distinct groups, right? Two little microcultures. So this family of origin and this family of origin, when they come together through both new marriages bring them together, right? So when they come together, they have initially no common shared history. So they really are these two distinct groups. They're just family by law, and I just love that label of in-law, your family because you legally have to be. Families that do the best are those that communicate as family. So across these family of origin lines, they share experiences together. They have new experiences together. They talk about experiences. They tell jokes where all are included in the joke. They share rituals. They take pictures together. They talk about each other's family. They have a common family identity. That's what they form. Just like different groups can come together to have a common in-group identity. And this is what builds the shared family identity that Jordan mentions at the bottom of page 182. Okay, so just like in the common in-group identity model we talked about earlier, they maintain the distinct components of each other's families too. They can and should do that. So while they're saying, oh, we're not in-laws, we're not just family legally, we're a joined family, let's have these common things together, they also do best to be cognizant of each other's family of origin. So for instance, the mother-in-law who says, please join us for our Hanukkah traditions, daughter-in-law, is building a common identity. And if she further enhances the relationship, she will say things like, so daughter-in-law, how do you want to incorporate your family of origins Christmas traditions into our celebration of Hanukkah? I can't wait to learn about them. I want to hear all about them and about the different things that your mom and dad did for the holidays, blah, 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 blah. So you see both levels are important, just like they were important in the workplace dynamics literature and beyond. Okay, so I'm going to skip over, now that we have those main points, I'm going to skip over some of the sections that follow because they may give you ideas for when you want to write about here or for your diverse paper, but there's much that we've already talked about. So what I want to do is I want to jump down to talking about family as a way that we learn about difference outside of the family. So this is point number 4 that you have. So family is a great place for intergroup contact. So this information really begins on page 190. So like I said, skip a bunch of the things in there. Don't skip reading them, but I'm not going to talk specifically about the things that are covered in between. I want to go to page 190 when Jordan begins the section on family communication and outgroup attitudes. Okay, so, pardon me, contact shift. He talks about ageism and how it's managed and communicated. This is the topic of an earlier unit. So if we think about ageism is affected by the intergenerational communication within the family unit. For those individuals, for those grandparents who use lots of appropriate self-disclosure and who provide a lot of social support, when grandparents do that, grandchildren report that the relationship is better. It's very satisfying. Grandchildren like that a lot. And to expand upon this, grandchildren like learning about their family's history. They like their grandparents asking them about their lives, things like that. And so Solis and Harwood found that in the piece that's cited here. So that's how they build this relationship, this satisfying relationship. But we know it's not all about satisfaction, right? Also, as Jordan reviews on the bottom of page 191, when these communication behaviors are accompanied by high age salience, i.e. the young person thought of the older person, the grandchild thought of the grandparent as a typical older adult and was thinking of them as old, those young people, those grandchildren, had less ageist attitudes. That's really important. It shows how this group salience is so key, because as we've talked about before, it's really easy when we're interacting with someone who's from a different group to just stop thinking about the fact that they are a member of that group. We can isolate them and say, oh, they're not like all old people. They're really open-minded. I mean, that's so ageist, right? What we've done is we've just removed them from the group, and we can do that with our own grandparents. My grandma's not your typical old lady. She really likes talking to people and, trying new hobbies. Well, that's pretty typical of older adults. You're just ageist and not thinking of it. Your grandma's an older adult, right? That's what older adults do. She's an older adult. A equals B, B equals C, all that jazz. So we see that we need this component of, oh yeah, my grandmother is a typical older adult. It seems so obvious or silly, but, humans are funny. Okay, so that group salience is really important there. So we see family as a great place for intergroup contact. When you have family members who are older, who are of different races, who are of different religions, you've got that built in intergroup contact. So that's really cool. And then these effects can transfer into your workplace. So, my family member is part of this group, and now this person who works down the hall from me. Oh, I have lots of women in my household, and I'm a man. Well, when I go to work, lots of women, or vice versa. Okay, so that is number 4. Now, number 5, families also teach us how to think and communicate regarding diversity. So while it's likely that you had an older adult, or at least someone who was an adult when you were a child, someone in a different age group, and you had this intergenerational contact, and it's likely that you had different genders in your family, some men and some women, even if we just had to move to extended family, probably some of both in there. You may not have had a lot of diversity in your family in terms of other social categories. Or maybe you did. Or maybe you don't know because no one ever talked about it. So what's important to consider, though, is that your family most likely communicated diversity about what diversity and difference mean. They probably said and did things that gave you an idea of what it means, what diversity means, what difference is, what it means, and what you should think about diverse groups specifically and generally, the feelings that you should have when you hear about diversity, you hear about difference, what should resonate with you, okay? So that's different. That's what we're going to talk about next. So research suggests that parents who do the following things tend to have children who are more accepting and inclusive in their communication of those who look, think, and act differently from themselves. So again, I'm going to give you a couple of things that research suggests that parents doing these things tend to have children who grow to be more accepting and inclusive of people who look, think, and act differently from themselves. That's a big deal, right? Because all that we've been talking about is we like people who are similar to us. We like to say, and that's what we're most drawn to. Well, some people aren't like that. And you may be one of those individuals that you like going outside of your group. You like meeting people who are different. You are drawn to that. You're excited about that. I know that's how I am. Okay, so this is what parents do who have those children. A couple of important things. First, they share their own lives with people who are different. Parents who invite people to their home who are different, have them over, they interact a lot with them. Parents who build friendships with people who are different, are talking with them, all those sorts of things. And so by those things, they're communicating directly with people who are different and have their children interacting with people who are different. That's that, okay? Also, people who are interested in participating in and who do participate in things where diverse opinions, beliefs, and even cultural displays are depicted, they tend to have children who are this way. So if your parents took you to see different art exhibits, or maybe they took you to museums where you could learn about different cultures, maybe they even, as I'll show you in a few minutes, maybe they expose you to different cultures through movies, books, and other media materials. So they gave you these things to learn about difference, and at the same time, by teaching you those things, they were letting you think that difference is something that should be learned about, that should be embraced, that should be appreciated, and that is an important part of an education, and being a part of your family was learning about these things and being exposed to them, even if you didn't remember what like the Inuit were or something like that. Okay. The other component, so parents in this situation who have these children who are inclusive and accepting, they also, this is so important, have positive communication displays about diverse groups. So now this is not less implied here, right? I'm not just taking you to art shows, things like that. I'm actually talking in a positive way, or not giving nonverbal displays that are positive about diverse groups. So whether talking around the dinner table, making a verbal display or nonverbal gesture in regard to something that I'm observing, I'm communicating to my children things about what I think about diversity. So if I see things in the media, maybe I'm watching television and I make comments about different groups, like maybe Republicans or Democrats, rich people, poor people, homeless people, old people, let's see, immigrants, Muslims, whatever that group is, I might make a comment about that group, or I might even just go, ugh, or, ooh. These things very early communicate to children ideas about difference and about different groups. And so again, those, back to our list of bullets here about what parents do when they have children who are inclusive and embrace difference, they have these more positive ooh instead of ugh. Okay. Also, this could be through giving advice, direct, explicit advice to children about meeting friends who are diverse, getting to know people who have different backgrounds from themselves. Hey, go talk to that student, they're new, and maybe that student is of a different race, a different skin tone. Maybe they don't speak English, English isn't their first language. Maybe they just look different. Maybe they're differently abled in some way, wear glasses or whatever it may be, they're in a wheelchair. So go make friends with them, or even saying advice. Like when you meet people who are different, go for it. But anyway, it could also be indirect transmission. So for instance, children often hear these messages parents exchange with each other. They overhear things like, parents having positive exchanges about different groups with each other. So my husband and I are talking about these different groups that are in another part of the world, and my kids overhear us talking about it in a way like, my parents are trying to relate to those groups and talking about it in ways that show that they care about people who are different. It helps, all of these things that I'm talking about, bringing people into your home are different, sharing your life with people who are different, who belong to different groups. Also, the way that you directly and indirectly talk positively about difference, both at specific groups who are different and also maybe just in a general way, like the way that we say diversity is awesome, or, oh, diversity. It's got to be that, oh, diversity is so great, that really solidifies to children that it is great. In a few weeks, we are going to talk about Samuel Olliner's work, and he takes it a step further and talks about individuals who actually move beyond that to sometimes risk their lives for people who are different, which is so outside of what we talk about. Most people, not just Americans, not just you in this class, but most people aren't going to do that. But there are people who have helped strangers who look completely different from them, who they've never met before, and who clearly are from different social groups, but they risk their own lives to help them. I mean, really amazing things. And we can trace this back to how their family communicated about difference very early on. But there's a lot that we don't know yet. So before I talk about the spillover effect, I do want to show you a couple of things. So first of all, this is just a clip. I have the book at home, but do any of you remember this one? This is a newspaper write-up about Free to Be You and Me. Do you remember that when we were kids? It has a lot to do with gender, pretty empowering, but this is, you can still buy the CD, and there are books that go along with it, and there have been some more recent things that came out. But gosh, those songs about not being limited by your gender, they changed my life. So did Shira and Wonder Woman and Annie. I love those gals. Okay, so this is a great book, Red or Blue, I Like You. If you ever see this at the dollar store or Target, I think it's $1. It's one of my favorite books that really sticks to the research and theory, and so it's based in a way that helps children to think about being inclusive of people or monsters who are different while maintaining their identities, learning about each other's identities. I love this book. I love it. It's okay to be different. Actually, when you read it, you learn it's even more than okay. It's pretty awesome. The Skin You Live In. This drives my kids crazy because it's not really a true story. It's more just like talking about skin, and different skins are awesome and stuff like that. They're like, where's the plot, Mom? But I love it. This is a classic. They keep re-releasing it. We're different. We're the same. Amazing. Sesame Street. You know, they do so much research, and a large part of that show is based on teaching about difference. Now let's get a little context specific. Grandfather Buffalo is a great one about old age, and this one's a little rickety, but Thomasaurus Rex was a good one about old age, since we talked about that a lot. A group that I admit I can't, I apologize, be prejudiced against, but I'm mindful of it. So Tori Spelling, who's incredibly rich, right? I have a bias against people who are incredibly rich. I'm like, wow, you gotta share some of that. But anyway, that's me. I'm aware of my biases. I work on them. But anyway, a student gave me this, and I love it. I thought, what a great book for me and for my kids, because it reminds us that children who come from privilege, they also can be heavily biased against, right? They're still kids, for gosh sakes, and they can grow up to be, we can all have a chance to grow up to be amazing. So that book was pretty cool too. Those are just some of those. Okay, so now we're going to totally shift, not totally, but quite a bit shift gears, and I want to talk about the spillover effect directly. So the spillover effect. Schultz, Cohen, and Brennan pose this broad question. How do negative affect and stress from the workday shape marital interactions at home each night? So that's the spillover effect, okay? The spillover effect is when stress from work bleeds over into our home life. It's more often looked at in this direction, but it can also happen in the reverse direction. If you're unhappy in any of your domains, you are likely to bring that into the others. So in particular, if you can't hash out conflicts due to power imbalances in one realm, i.e. you can't fight back with the boss, then you tend to take that out elsewhere, and likely with someone you love. Has that ever happened to you? You're probably nodding. Yeah, we've probably all done that. You have a bad day at work, you come home and you take it out on being snippy with, or otherwise, affecting your partner. Your partner's like, I didn't do anything. That's her problem. We've all probably done that at one point in time. And it can also go the other way. If you're having problem at you come at home and you come into work and you at your coworker. So we've all experienced a lot of times you can't or you don't work things out at work, or at home, and so it comes over into your other realm. So again, these researchers wanted to know, how does that negative stuff at work and how you feel about it, how do you actually communicate with your partner? It's looking at married couples at night. I love this. So here is what Schultz and colleagues found. Changes in the workplace that occurred during the day, the stressors, the shifts, and the end of the day moods that people have, as you might imagine, like a lower mood that was felt at the end of the day, they were both linked to anger, how you display your anger, the anger displays, and to withdrawal behaviors. Withdrawal behaviors is like just bottling things up and turning away from your partner, not really engaging in your partner, not interacting nicely with him or her. So anger displays and then withdrawal displays among married couples. Okay, so that's one big finding, a broad finding. Next, women who were aroused by negative workplace events. So they experienced these things. During their workday, they had these changes that upset them. Okay. The women, tended to be angrier in the evenings with their partners than when they didn't have those things happen to disrupt their workday. Okay. So the women got angry with their partners at night when they had bad work stuff. The next thing, the third thing, so men who experienced these shifts at work tended to withdraw in their evening communication with wives. So, women overall fluctuated more greatly based on the workplace day-to-day stuff, those changes, and the changes in mood, the stress that they experienced, the change in mood. When the researchers statistically remove the workday stress and mood from the equation, we don't see gender differences at all in terms of marital communication at night, at least not in the ways that it's measured here with the anger and the withdrawal. So this is the fourth finding. Okay, so when we remove that from the equation, we aren't seeing, oh, men do this and women do this. These are different things. We see that men and women are communicating pretty much the same. It's when something bad happens at work that we see, oh, women tend to do this, and something bad happens and men tend to do this. So this suggests that the workplace changes women's behaviors more than men's, sure. Which that change, I want you to keep in mind too about a change at the workplace. Even when things are positive at work, like, you got a couple more tasks to do because you're just so great at your job, and so that brings stress too, okay? We like consistency and we like reduced uncertainty. So a new thing, it's like, oh, I'm uncertain about it. And even if it's a positive thing, that can be stressful and we bring that home. I just want to point that out. But so what we're seeing here is a lot like what we read by Palomares, right? Because we're also seeing that we act in more gender segregated ways when our stress is induced. This is an important point when it comes to diversity, right? It's important. So, you're probably hearing, oh, workplace, things that happen stressful at workplace and how you bring it home to your marriage. What the heck does that have to do about diversity? Well, think about what happened. People were stressed out at work. And then when they came home in their marriage, they shifted and they were more dramatically in this kind of stereotypical men are from Mars, women are from Venus, that on a day-to-day basis, they aren't like that. So it's another way that we're queuing up distinctiveness in our communication. So that's pretty interesting in terms of diversity. Especially because men and women are acting similarly in their anger display and their withdrawal patterns otherwise without these shifts. So you may be asking, why should we care? Well, I think it's useful in thinking about interacting with your partner. But in the family realm, in the marital realm, we see that there's this pattern, this demand withdrawal pattern that happens a lot in married couples, and it's particularly problematic where one partner is like demanding, hey, come talk to me, I'm on you, I'll work this out, and the other partner is just like, oh, and withdraws and shuts down and doesn't talk. And that only makes the other partner demand more. And a lot of times it actually happens the opposite of how I've been talking. I'm not talking about the women demanding more and the men the women demanding and the men withdrawing. It can happen the opposite way too. But it's so important to know that, forgive me, I should have been clear on that. It happens a lot in the way described, but it doesn't always happen this way. So we see a lot that women are demanding, men are withdrawing. And it cycles and cycles and cycles and becomes particularly problematic. And that is what we saw in this study, but it can happen the other way. Men can be the demander and women can be the withdrawer. But at any rate, they behaved in these very gendered ways after the spillover. But this is just one way, back to the notes now, I have this bulleted. This is just one way that work and family are connected. So let's get directly at more ways that family affects workplace diversity. First, our diverse backgrounds are formed by our family. Social categories like race, gender, geographic region, and religion are things that come out of our family's genetics and history, right? These are things that make us who we are, so we get them from our family. It makes us diverse at work. Okay, second, our family communicated to us about our identities, the things that make us diverse at the workplace. So the second point, they told us we were women or men and what that meant, that we were part of a certain race or religion. Heck, the ways our parents communicated to us about our identities may have even come through anticipatory socialization about work. So anticipatory socialization is just the way that parents teach you, the way they talk to you about work. So for example, telling a daughter that she should be a science teacher, telling a son he should be a scientist. These differences we have in how we talk to people about what work means, what's important, stuff like that. So big thing there. Number 3, our families taught us how to communicate our identities to others at work, and also that our family communicated to us. They taught us how to communicate that family identity to the world, or in some instances, how to keep it silent. A family of one black child, for instance, might have said, "You will always face discrimination. Be ready." And others may have said, "Do your best and you can achieve greatness. Never forget that." Now, these aren't mutually exclusive messages, but some families communicate one way, some families communicate another way. Other families may have talked about both of these things to their children. There is discrimination. It is out there. There's great evidence of it still, even though we have a black president. There's so much evidence of it. I just put that because people say that a lot, like it negates it. But that's just invalid logically. And okay, but anyway, they would say that this discrimination thing isn't over, and you can achieve great things and work hard, and there will be great opportunities for you too. Parents who say both of these things, surprise, surprise, their kids turn out the best equipped for life in a racist society, and they're also very successful. Parents who talk about both. It's thumbs up. But anyway, if you're interested in this notion of talking to children about race, which can be applied to other contexts of social inequality, please see the Daniel and Daniel piece, and I can send you that. It's a chapter from a book about family and diversity. So also here are some cool, I mentioned some other cool books about diversity, and this is how families teach that. And I just love thinking about these books that I have for my kids. And another one that I see I have a note about is the book The Sneetches, Dr. Seuss. You got to get that. It misses a couple steps in the process. He forgets. He wasn't an intergroup scholar, just really a brilliant writer. He forgets to note that different groups have to actually interact for changes to be made. But that's also a great, great book. Now, I've covered everything here. For your activity that you'll submit as a discussion board post, I want you to really brainstorm here. You're going to post something for me about how your work and family life spill over into each other. Just one incident. The incident could have been, like, it's hard to tease out which came first, the chicken or egg, the work stuff or the home stuff, but I want it to be a case where these things spilled over, and I want it to be a case that is somehow connected to diversity. It could be in the ways that we saw in this piece, and the piece of that we just talked about with workplace spillover into married couples' lives, or it could be a more traditional diverse interaction. Maybe someone at work discriminated against you, or you were afraid you looked like you were discriminating against someone else, you did, or there was something related to diversity there, or to gender differences or age differences at work, and then that affected how you came home. Or maybe it's also a way that your family taught you about diversity or didn't, or things that your family taught you about how to communicate with people who were different, and then that spilled over and affected your life. But I want you to please post, and then I want you to comment, and I want you to holler at me with any questions.